Hi, everyone. This is Michelle for Afro Expats, and we're continuing with our lifestyle series about Black expats who live in Mexico. Um, the point and purpose is just to share where others are, where they live, and just give you inspiration about different parts of Mexico and how vast Mexico is. So I keep finding us around, and anytime I do, I get excited and I just want to share stories that others can be inspired by and get to meet. So hello, everyone. I want you to meet Nannette.
Hi,
Mhm. So she's going to let us know her full name and where she's from.
hi. My name is Nannette Marie Thomas, and I currently live in Chapala in the state of Jalisco, and it's in an area that is called by most people Lakeside.
Mhm.
And I am originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Have lived most of my life in Los Angeles, California for over 33 some odd years, and moved here to Lakeside from Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, wow. How long
I've
ago was
been
that?
Yeah, I've been in Lakeside in Chapala because I moved directly to Chapala for almost it'll be 3 years, July 1st of this year.
Oh, okay. So you also moved in 2018.
Hmm.
Okay. And what brought you to Lake Chapala? Like, what was your inspiration?
Well, what brought me here was I had been doing for 2 years prior,
Mhm.
a number of researches, just researching areas in in and around the world basically, but it ended up being in Latin America was where I finally ended up looking, basically because the I wanted to live a lifestyle that I wanted to live, and the United States was becoming way too expensive.
That's
So I'm
true.
retired and I wanted my money, and I plan on being on a planet for quite a while. So I said, I wanted the money to really last a long time. I'm single, I'm with no children. And so I said, yeah, let me look to see what's what. And
Right.
at that point, I was living in Los Angeles and I moved to Atlanta, Georgia. And Atlanta, Georgia was nice, but it wasn't for me. So I became even more adamant about, okay, where can I go outside of the country? Because I have traveled previously outside of the country. And having lived in Los Angeles, I was always in Baja California. That would be a great weekend just to drive down to
Mhm.
Baja California, which is where Tijuana, Ensenada, and Cabo San Lucas is. And
Mhm.
so I said, well, oh, I know, I know Mexico. Let me go look at Mexico. But I had also looked at Ecuador previously, Costa Rica, parts of South America, and I almost moved to Ecuador. And by the time I got ready to move to Ecuador, they were changing the rules for immigration
Ah,
for seniors.
okay. How so did they change the rules? Because I visited Ecuador years ago, but I
Mhm.
know that that's become more popular for people who want to, live abroad. I've
Mhm.
heard that Ecuador is one of the up and coming countries. What changed?
Well, what changed was it was a real easy visa
Mhm.
to receive in Ecuador, um, because Ecuador became, there was a problem with Ecuador, but Ecuador also was, 10 years prior before I was looking.
Mhm.
And then they became more independent. They accepted the US dollar and as their currency. And what it was that as I was looking in, like, was it 2017, 2018, something like that, it was talk
Mhm.
from other expats that were there. And there was talk about, oh, the visa will not be easy. You could just basically just go there. I think at that point, a lot of people were there. They were. the minimum amount of money that you could make to bring in was like $800, $600, something like that from the US. So a lot of people were moving there because if you know, that's not going to go anywhere in the US.
Right.
And not only that, there was also, it was much more easier to, if you had some cash and you wanted to open up a business, and or you could just get your citizenship on just putting X amount of money into the bank. And so I was looking at that, and then there was also absolutely totally free health insurance, and well, not health, I shouldn't say insurance, but the health, you know, health coverage and whatever it was, and the, where was I looking? I was looking at Cuenca, Ecuador.
Okay.
And the hospitals were highly rated, and I'm thinking long term because I'm saying, well, if I'm going to move, then I need to move, and I need to think long term. Where will I be in 10 to 20 years, right? You know, will I have some health issues and so forth? So it was very, very interesting to see that. And things were changing. People were talking online in the various Facebook groups I had joined that things were changing, and my Spanish is not good. It still is not good. And so people who were reading the Spanish newspapers were saying that the government was looking at doing something different. And so then I said, oh, I waited too long.
I wonder what brought that on.
It's the same thing like with Panama. Panama was extremely easy to get into, let's say 5 to 10 years ago. And now it's much, much more difficult as far as, I mean, you just can't sign a paper and they'll just accept you. Yeah.
Okay.
So over the years, things have changed. And I think what it is, listening, I haven't heard it from expats, because if you're there, right? You know, but there are other not Facebook, but YouTube videos that I watch of people who were talking about who talk about if you're moving from the US, the UK or Australian, where they're accepting and how easy it is to get in certain countries. And so what they were saying is that after a while, these countries become saturated, and they realize that, they've got the US dollar there, people are spending money, and then just regimes of government who's running the government will change and so forth. Yeah.
That's true. I think that too, it depends on how the government or administration is treating people in the US, that are coming from these countries as well. So I think that also plays a factor. But I didn't know it was so easy before to get into Ecuador and also into Panama, because I never really looked at it from that aspect. I knew Panama wasn't too complicated. And I feel that Mexico is not so complicated, but it's becoming a little bit more convoluted with the information that's out there. And, and I always tell people it kind of depends on what consulate you go to as well.
Oh, as far as the consulate, yes.
Trying to get a visa, temporary or permanent, it feels like the rule changes, and it almost forces you to get help, at least from, the Mexico side. But I mean, I don't know that any place is more complicated than the US in terms of getting, residency. So we really have to knock on wood and thank our lucky stars.
So we're not going in the opposite direction. Exactly.
Right, exactly.
Moving from one country, trying to get into the US. This is so true. And it's only through, I believe, research and taking one's time that people coming from the US looking at moving to Mexico or any other country will realize that it's not as easy as they think, because we're born into the US,
right,
have naturalized, residency because of your birth, and then moving somewhere else. I'm just going to say this. I'm not going to mention my cousin's name, but she's always wanted to move to Italy. She was in the armed forces, and she just loved Italy. And I said to her, it's not easy to get residency in Italy.
Right.
Theirs is much more difficult than going to a lot of other countries.
Right.
So she goes, oh, no, 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 no. I love the country, this, that, and the other. She went there. She realized she couldn't. I'm not sure what all had happened. I don't know if she had to start. I think she had to start the residency in the US and she didn't know that. And she went there thinking she could just start the residency there. And I'm saying to her, and she is registered as a travel agent, right? Okay. And I said to her, I said, well, didn't you know this?
Yeah.
And didn't you do your, some people, let me just say it this way. Some people just assume. They have a lot of assumptions.
Right.
And you have to be very careful when you assume and don't do your research.
Right.
And so she's not there. She's back in the US. Mm-hmm. She went back a second time. She tried to do it again. It was something about she had to own something or rent something prior, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I said, you should, but Italy is her place that she absolutely loved and she can't get in for whatever reason.
I don't know what the requirements are for Italy, mm-hmm. but it was definitely one of the places we considered as well. But we never really got that far because for me, I just, I was just kind of like, I don't want to lose, money off the top every month because obviously the euro is much stronger than the US dollar on average. And so I love Italy as the country goes as well. But, when it comes to a place to live for myself, I was just kind of like, okay, let's go somewhere where it's, less expensive for us. So that's very interesting because I think a little bit of the misconception, or like you said, the assumptions that we make is that we're going to be accepted easily anywhere just because we're American or we're from the United States. And that's not the case. I had a client a few months ago and she was interested in moving abroad. She didn't have really exactly where she wanted to go. And she's doing her due diligence, doing a lot of research. And she was asking about Canada and a few other places. And I was just like, you can't just show up. You really need to narrow it down and see what the requirements are. And even working, people really, just to make another point about what you're saying is, I want people to understand that even though Mexico kind of is probably a little looser and more lax, there's still a lot of laws here. And you can get in trouble and you can break a law and, possibly be punished for it. Maybe not severe, maybe not harsh as the US, but it does happen. So I always tell people, if you do want to move and you want to be there permanently, get someone to kind of help you because it doesn't cost an arm and a leg.
Right.
You can probably have them guide you through it if you don't qualify in the more traditional ways. I know that, there are ways that you can maybe, like you said, either buy something or, rent long term. I'm not really sure, but I know that there are different requirements. You can maybe start a business that somehow funds what your financial requirements need to be. So there are a lot of options. I just think don't just show up and not handle
be accepted. Yes.
So that's kind of, and I know that they're cracking down a little bit more than they probably have in the past. So I always just tell us, make sure you, cross your T's, dot your I's, and just try to make sure you're on the up and up with that. So tell me more about Lake Chapala or Lakeside. What's it like for you there? I know you've been there for 3 years. Have you visited other parts of Mexico? And, how did you narrow it down to Lake Chapala?
So I narrowed it. Well, before I go there, I'm going to mention regarding people traveling and looking elsewhere. What I find is that a number of people that I've spoken with and family members assume that because they can visit there, they can get a tourist visa, that is almost, it's like it's going to be the same as if you go live there.
Right.
And there are a number of people who have said, well, I visited, Mexico. Now we'll be back in Mexico.
Right.
And so I liked wherever I visited, I was visiting. And so that's it. And I just want to say to people, visiting and living is two different, very, very different situations.
Yes.
So I had, for example, like I said, I lived in Southern California, and I was always in Baja California, and which is part of Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
It's the peninsula of one of the peninsulas. The other one is the Yucatan, but the peninsula that touches San Diego and parts of San Diego, basically, the southern part of California, and a little part of Arizona. And I said, oh, I know Mexico. I've been to Mexico. And then I moved to Lake Chapala. Very different.
Mm-hmm.
Different, but I loved it because, living in Southern California, and I was previously a special education educator and working with a number, and I had the babies. My last years of teaching was with the babies, like 3 to 5, and talking to many, many parents who were from most of them were from Central America, and then others, from Mexico. And I thought I knew enough Spanish too, not. And anyway.
I know, I did too. So not. My first grocery store experience, I was like, oh my God, I got to learn how to, every item
Yes.
that I need to figure out what is it. I remember trying to figure out flour, and I had my phone translating.
Yes.
Oh, harina. Oh, okay. Walking down the aisles. Yeah, there's so many nuances you just don't think about. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So absolutely, Michelle. So it was interesting because I had come here and I came in. I'm trying to think. No, I think I've been here, almost 3 years. So I came in 2018 to visit Lake Chapala, but I actually for 2 weeks to stay in Ajijic, which is the central part of Lake Chapala. Okay. And there's Lake Chapala. Lake Chapala is the name of the lake.
Right.
And Lakeside is the very friendly name that goes for this area. Okay. And Lake Chapala is the largest freshwater lake in Mexico. It's huge. Okay. Mm-hmm. But it's not a lake where one can go swim in. Right. And most people don't boat in it either, except for the locals, because we're on the northern shore of Lake Chapala, and there's 5 towns along the northern shore where most of the expats are. Okay. And it's more or less like, some people will describe it as a senior resort, for people who are retired and so forth. There are of course, there's local families that are here, right. But these were fishing towns. So it's in the mountains. We're 5,000 feet up. Okay. And we're from the airport. The largest airport is Guadalajara, which is the second largest airport in Mexico. Okay. And you just go over the mountain. It's not a hill. You go over the mountain and then you're there in about 30 to 40 minutes. Okay. To the airport? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Okay. That's good to know. Yes. And the central and if whatever you can't find in these little towns, you can find in Guadalajara, which is to get into central Guadalajara, it's about an hour's ride. Okay. Guadalajara, now you said you've been to Mexico City, right? Yes. So Guadalajara, Yes, I've been there. I've also been to Guadalajara. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, Guadalajara is a major metropolitan city. Yes. And then Lake Chapala is this little sleepy area. Yeah. Over the mountain, down the hill, to the lakeside. Yeah. It used to be a volcano. It's a volcano, so many however many hundreds, thousands of years ago.
Okay.
So yeah, so now it's a lake. And Lake Chapala, so how did I find Lake Chapala? Oh, first of all, the 5 towns along Lake Chapala are going east to west, and I'm on the east side, is Chapala itself.
Okay.
And Chapala, San Antonio, Ajijic, San Juan Cosala, and Jocotepec, being the furthest west. Jocotepec.
Oh, okay. Okay.
If I'm saying it right.
So
Jocotepec.
are those considered kind of like the expat areas?
Yes, Jocotepec is becoming more and more, which is the furthest west, is the expat area. Ajijic, when people put in, like if you were to do a Google search for Lake Chapala or Lakeside and basically Lake Chapala, Ajijic will show up as the town, because that is basically the center with 2 other towns on either side of it.
Okay.
And Ajijic is also what's considered, it just became the, what do they call it? Magical. It's a magical town, which means it has a lot of history and so forth. And I think it was in 2020. I don't think it was beginning of this year, but in 2020, it became a magical town. It got the honor of being a magical town.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
So what would you say the kind of like the distance from, one end to the other, just so people have a general idea? How much time would it take you to drive those 5?
Oh, the drive. Oh, we're so close. It's so
really close. Okay.
Yeah. It would take, if I start, because I live at the furthest end of Chapala. And if I get in my car and I drive to Jocotepec Central, it would be about an hour.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the towns are very close together. And there's a 2-lane quote unquote major road. That's it.
Okay.
We're tiny.
No, I like it a lot. I think, this is good information, because sometimes maybe people are interested in moving somewhere, but they don't want to go somewhere where it feels so metropolitan, because it's not so easy to blend in or make friends when it feels like it's going to swallow you up like Mexico City would.
Right.
Well, I mean, it makes it nicer if you can kind of get out and it's smaller and you can meet people in their groups and they get together and do things. I think that these areas offer those options in general. So what do you think about how easy, or, what are the pros and cons in regard to integrating? Like, what did you find easier to do than not?
Okay, so I want to answer some of your questions from before too, because I go off. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
So I'll integrate what you just spoke about. Okay. So going, how I found Lake Chapala was again doing a lot of researching and finding out that, geez, wait a minute, there's a retirement, quote unquote, a retirement community in Lake Chapala, which was something that I was looking for, but I didn't know what exactly they meant when they said retirement community. But this has been an area for over 50 years.
Wow.
That people from North America, which is the U.S., I'm going to say, even though Mexico is part of North America, from the U.S. and from Canada have been coming down here to retire. And so this area is a bubble. It's a very specific bubble in all of Mexico, as far as where most retirees go to. Now that may change because more and more people are coming into Mexico over the next few years, but you can be here and not have to know Spanish. You can stay. There are people who have been here for 20 years plus and have never bothered to learn Spanish. I will not be one of them, though. You get discounts when you speak the language.
Okay, you do. You get it for less, trust me.
You get it for less. You know where to go. Yet there are a number of businesses, restaurants, where if you just have just basic understanding of Spanish and can, like you said, go to the market and know what you're looking for,
Right.
then that's fine.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to make a comment about the population because I heard that Lake Chapala and that area had the largest Canadian expat population. Is that still true?
I
Or
believe it is still true. And the latest information I looked up is that there are at least 10,000 plus
wow.
expats, English speaking expats from the United States and Canada. Yes.
Okay.
And
That's
we
kind
have,
of
go ahead.
sorry, I was just saying that's kind of the same numbers that we have as well in San Miguel.
Okay. And because there's, I don't know who's taking these surveys.
Me neither.
Because it's very, very lax here. So yeah, there could be more. I don't even know what the latest population is just in general.
Right.
But you can basically walk the streets of these small towns and they're all connected. They're all connected. It's just one straight line of areas. And you would only know if you saw a little baby sign that said that you were in the next town over, right? But you get to know where they are. And so coming here, I realized that, this is an area that I can actually go to. And I go, well, my Spanish is okay, thinking my Spanish was okay. and this will be great because I looked at this place as a jumping place, a jumping point. Like I can come here, I can learn about the culture, even though it is quite different from the rest of Mexico, but it's still Mexican culture.
Right.
I can get a lot of information. Then I said to myself, well, if I decide to move someplace else, my Spanish will have improved because I'm just listening to Spanish. But no, you'll speak Spanish and the people here will talk to you in English.
Yes, same here.
Because they want to practice their English.
Same here.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, exactly the same.
Yeah. So, so I came here in 2018, came to Ajijic, stayed for 2 weeks. Because this is a lake and we're on the other side of the mountain, we have the two-lane major road, which is called the Carretera. Is there's one lane going one way and one lane going the other. That's it.
Okay.
And there aren't. So we say the lake, or do you live on the lake side or the mountain side? Because one side is right up against the mountain and the other side will go down into the lake. Ajijic for me, because I don't like going up and down stuff, was just a little, was all downhill basically, or else I had to go uphill. And I'm like, I don't want that. Right. And when I returned home, I realized that there was an area called Chapala. And Chapala is the municipal center for all of these other towns except for Ajijic. Except for Jocotepec, which is its own municipal center. Okay. A municipality center. So Chapala, even though I think Chapala has its own, they call them presidentes, but they're like mayors. And Ajijic has a quote unquote mayor. I don't really get into the politics here because I'm not a citizen and I'm not supposed to be involved in politics.
Right.
So, but it is different. Whereas Jocotepec, which is at the furthest western end of this northern shore, has its own presidente. Right. So, yeah. And I'm not sure if San Juan Causala comes under Jocotepec or if it comes under Chapala. But anyway, Chapala is flat. It's a lot flatter.
Oh, really? Was that a surprise for you?
Yeah, that was what made me decide that. And I did all of my decision making online, just looking at all of the various YouTube videos, because I had gone to all of the other. Well, no, let me see. I had done a tour, and I did a tour when I came here, and I looked at parts of San Juan Causala, Ajijic, and San Antonio. It had wasn't shown Hocotepec or Chapala. And when
Okay.
I came back, and when I got back home to the US, I said, I want to see. And I just said, well, what else is there? Because
Right.
I didn't like all the ups and downs in the hills. And I had that in LA with Hollywood Hills. No, I wanted something that was flat. So, so Chapala was flat,
Okay.
pretty much. So I came here
Mhm.
with 4 suitcases and stayed in the Airbnb that was in what's called Chapala Central. And there are 2 major, I want to say expat organizations that are here that one can become involved with.
Okay.
And one is called American Legion. And I was down the street from like 4 doors away from the American Legion, which is in
Okay.
Chapala. And the other one is LCS, Lake Chapala Society, which
Okay.
is in Ahihi. And that's the major one that most people know about and will go to.
Okay.
The American Legion Post 7 is basically for veterans, but because it was down the street, that was where I got to meet a lot of different people.
Okay.
Almost all of my meals were eaten there because they both have restaurants.
Mhm.
Lake Chapala Society has classes, all different types of classes. Now 2020 was all upside down, but
Right.
normally they have a lot of different classes, yoga classes to introduce you to the Mexican culture at LCS, Lake Chapala Society, and so forth. And so you must join to become a member. That's how they
Right.
make their money.
Right.
And the whole area is on a previous expats little hacienda area with land and
Oh,
multiple
nice.
homes and so forth. Yeah.
Nice. Very nice. So
Yes.
that sounds very similar to San Miguel in terms of the community that's been created here among the
Mm,
expats. There's so much to do. And I find that, people that are originally from here, Mexicans, locals that have lived here or have moved from other parts of Mexico and they live here now,
mhm.
they integrate very well in general, and that there's a lot of offerings being kind of, given. And I want people to kind of understand that makes the chemistry and the synergies that we experience. And I feel that we're, blessed to have because
Yes,
they welcome
yes,
us, and I mean foreigners in general, and I always tell people when I speak to them and or explain my experience that I try to be gracious, not impatient, not come with this kind of like, I need it now. That was one of the things I spoke about with Rakia and Roxana. You have to learn to just appreciate the differences and the different challenges that you can experience when you move to any new place, or even visit. You just
yes.
need to not take on a persona that it should happen the same way it happens when you're at home.
Exactly, Michelle. And the difference is when one visits, well, let me just talk about my family and friends. They'll go to the coast, either coast, right? And so it is when I say visiting Mexico. And
Mhm.
so they go to these tourist areas that's all set up for them.
Right.
And you're not going to have to figure out, like, my Tanaka is not working today. Who do I call?
No,
Right? How do I get up there to see it? What is a Tanaka? What
right,
are
exactly.
these things on top of the roof? I don't understand that. So
Right. No, it's true.
and so that's very, very different. When I came here, I stayed for a year and a half in an Airbnb.
Mhm.
It was run by, I love her. She's like even though they're younger than me, they're like my mom and dad. It was run by a Mexican family.
Mhm.
And the wife speaks very good English. And so
Mhm.
she just took me in. I loved her. She loves me,
Yeah.
and I call her mama. And even though she's 20 years younger than me, but she just took care of me. And I stayed there basically because I said, I'm not moving until I know what I just feel comfortable with. And what I need to feel
Right.
comfortable with was, like I said, why do you have those big tanks on top of your roofs? What are they for?
Right.
Why is it, at least here
Mm-hmm.
in most of Lakeside, you cannot flush toilet paper down the toilet?
Yeah. A
You
lot.
know, I don't know, you know, and I know in certain parts, because I have friends who live in San Miguel de Allende, so certain parts, it all depends on where you are, right? And I'm like, what do you mean I can't flush the toilet? What am I supposed to do with it then? You know,
You're like, ew.
I know, right? Well, I just say, ooh, a thirst.
Yeah.
But I had come, that's why it's so important to come and visit a place before you actually move. And if not, then a tremendous amount of asking questions on various Facebook groups, you
Right.
know, and
Exactly.
that information with a grain of salt because you are who you are and you're going to be different. But
Right.
anyway, and then so she taught me a lot. She was
Mm-hmm.
very, very patient.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was an Airbnb, it was a house with multiple places in it, right? I got to meet a lot of different people coming and going and asking questions and so forth. And then I moved to where I'm at now, which is still in Chapala, but it's in a neighborhood called Los Redes.
Okay.
And I live in a very Mexican neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Paid very Mexican prices.
That's
I
perfect.
can't, there's nowhere near I can get what I have, the size that I have for the price that I pay.
Right.
Yeah, it took me a year and a half to do that. And I just was fine, you know, staying where I was. I moved out of the Airbnb. I mean, out of the pricing of the Airbnb, and then she just rented my place. You know, they can do that for a certain amount of money.
Right.
And so I just stayed there and learned a lot. Just learned a lot and met people at the American Legion post. As far as being open, I would say that Lake Chapala Society is more open to the general public and
Mm-hmm.
to locals than the American Legion post.
Okay. Okay.
Just, you know, on the tip. That's it.
Sharon.
Yeah, that's for real. That's for real. Even though anybody can come in and it's mostly just food and drink,
Mm-hmm.
and you just, at the American Legion post, it's mostly just food and drink.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also volunteer activities that one can volunteer for.
Right.
Now they do that in and around the community. So
Okay.
they have like, what is it? Casa de Casa, something like that. They also, the American Legion Post Auxiliary will support, I know at least one orphanage that's here, which because it's right around the corner from where I currently live, and that kind of thing. But as far as coming in, locals coming in and integrating, you can. I don't think they feel comfortable doing that though. I don't see it.
Okay.
Are there any locals? Not unless they're married to one of the guys or gals, right? You know, who are veterans. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So it's kind of a little bit of an exclusive setup, somewhat.
Somewhat. LCS is Lake Chapala Society, and Ahihi is set up quite differently.
Okay. What would you say your percentage in terms of cost of living is compared to where you came from? Even Atlanta. I know California is outrageous, so maybe California is the best point of reference, but Atlanta, you know, is probably what you would get on average in most of the US cost-wise. What do you think you're saving percentage-wise?
I just talk rent because I'm renting. I haven't decided to buy. Maybe I'll buy later. My rent for a very large one-bedroom apartment is not even $160 US.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I'm moving. I'm coming to Lake Chapala.
Can't get this everywhere. No, but people know me and they go, if you want cheap rent, friends, right? You know, like even Joan has sent people, like she sent somebody and she goes, Nan, you know, do you know where the cheap rent is? And because I have Mexican friends now.
Right. And you
Which makes
spent
a
that
difference.
year and a half kind of integrating. You know, it's funny because, you know, I have several clients that are moving here or moving somewhere else in Mexico. And I've been telling them, like, you know, first of all, you know, do not go with that American realtor that lives in this town because it's just, they're going to bring you to the most expensive places.
That's right.
Don't get me wrong, they're probably amazing. but you can find amazing. You just have to give yourself time. And I always try to explain to everyone that we don't have an MLS system in Mexico.
No, no.
There's just not this shared setup and information. There are not lock boxes on houses where you could just get a key out and go and see it. It takes a lot of time and patience, and just be gracious. And the process is very different. But the point is a lot of places that are to be found that are great deals is
Mhm.
you going in, finding the owners and the whomever, learning the language, or at least having someone that's by your side to kind of help you communicate,
Mhm.
and getting those deals. They're out there. You just need time and you need patience. And I like giving people that advice, telling them stay in an Airbnb. It might take you a month or two, but you're
Right.
going to probably find what you really want within the price that you're looking for. But you need to like not rush it. Every now and then, yes, you can get lucky. And make sure, if you do not understand the language and you do not understand the laws and you don't know, you get that little weird feeling, I always say hire an attorney to
Yes.
look your lease over, make sure it's straight, and not your realtor or the whomever's attorney. Get someone separate. And like you said, on Facebook, you can find all sorts of groups that will give you information
Mhm.
that, will benefit you somehow if you don't know where to start or how to
Yes.
find things. This to me just cuts down on a lot of stress and grief. I hear people saying, oh my God, I did da 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 da, and this and that and that. And I'm saying to myself, you could have spent an extra 25 to 50 US dollars to get yourself an attorney. Cause I had one look at my lease. As much as I love this place, I was like, I don't know them. They don't know me. I don't
Exactly.
Spanish well enough to read a 5-page contract. And
Right.
I'm not signing that until it's translated to English and someone is on my side looking at it. And it was well worth the 800 pesos that I paid to have this attorney look my things over, and just do that. Don't be
And-
cheap.
Exactly. Thank you. With that, with what you're just saying, there's been a couple of people, right, that I have known that have come here,
Mhm.
rented something, and then when I say here, come not just to Mexico, well, yes, in Mexico, but come specifically to Lakeside, came, rented something, was given a didn't have the Spanish, right? Didn't know how to read Spanish, and had a Spanish lease, and was also given a lease in English because they said, well, I want it translated into English.
Mhm.
Well, depending on the person who's owning the property, they can put anything and say this is what the lease says. And then, but what holds precedence here is the Spanish lease.
Of course.
And they have had problems because they're reading the English lease, which is not the same as the Spanish lease.
Right.
And as what's saying, but you said, and it's like, no, but the Spanish lease says. And so there's a person currently, and I just had to relay them to, there's a woman here who is a lawyer, court certified translator. And I said, okay, you need to speak to this person.
Right.
Right? Because you're reading the English lease, the rental agent is saying, well, it's the Spanish lease that holds ground, and she's only, I think, been here 3 weeks, but she didn't look at the person, she didn't look at her place first. She came in, and sometimes you get lucky. You can get lucky. The universe is working with you. The stars are great.
Right.
And you move into a place and you don't have a problem. Then other times there are problems.
Yeah. And when it's a problem, it's
Area.
a problem because, just think about it. You moved from a country where you understand the laws, you understand your rights, you understand that there are repercussions in court and whatever. Mexico is very different in this regard. Not saying that, you don't have rights or whatever, but more than likely, if you cannot fluently understand and speak the language, you're going to probably have, the short end of the stick.
Absolutely.
So it's just kind of worth it sometimes to find reputable people that are legit, Make sure your lease is legit. Make sure your, transaction is legit. I also tell people, do not give them money until you get a key. I don't do that. I'm just like, you don't do that in the US, it's like, you don't do that there. I don't know that I've ever given my full, deposit, first, last month rent, security, and then did not get the key and the contract in my hand on the same day. So why would you do that in Mexico? And I'm saying it because I've heard people complain online, and
Exactly.
I just shake my head and I think to myself, like, what, what were you thinking? You don't even understand enough
The
of the
language,
laws,
yes,
the
yes.
language. And trust me, I've heard it all. And a lot of times the law will be on the side of the local person because we don't know what we signed or we signed ourselves up for. So it's just smart, if there's local contact, try or take your time. I think just what you said, stay in an Airbnb, take your time, find the right connections, make friends, learn the language if you can, enough to know what you're doing and getting yourself into. One of the things I have to say this that scared me was, and I read about this, was renting from someone, like maybe one family member, but there were 5 actual family members that owned a property.
Yes, that happens a
Other
lot.
members not knowing that there were 4 other people, and then them showing up saying, what are you doing here? Because this might be their vacation home or whatever. So that was one of the bigger reasons why I made sure, one, the contract I was signing had, on file, kind of like their local city hall, that was the actual owner of the house and only him. And these are the things that the attorney was able to find out for me.
Exactly,
And
yes.
go digging for. And it's funny because the attorney and the property manager that put our stuff together, I don't know what happened, but they got into it somehow. And, she was on my side. And then the property manager, who was also on my side, but on the side of the owner, she was all upset about whatever. And, I felt like, and I explained to her, I said, look, I don't really, I don't know you and I don't know the owners. The owners don't even live here. They live in Morelia, which is 2 hours away. So I said, I just need to make sure that if I'm handing you over X amount of pesos, that this is legitimate. And I said, so this is not out of the norm. She didn't think it was, but for whatever reason, they just kind of got into it. And I think somehow she felt like, offended that I had this person kind of, interrogating her a little bit. And so, you have to push back and you have to make sure people understand where you're coming from and why you feel the way you do. This is nothing personal. It's business and it's a contract, and you definitely don't want to, especially if you're on a temporary or a permanent visa, you don't want to kind of, get yourself in a position where that could be held against you somehow. That's something to consider.
And the rights also here are, I'm just going to speak Lakeside because that's what I know, right? Is if someone asks for a first and last rent, right? You don't do that in Mexican. Well,
No.
I'm not going to say, I'll be quiet. But in the Mexican neighborhoods, no, I didn't have to do that. But anyway, but if they want a first and a last, and you have a deposit down, and then because of whatever you didn't do I'm just going to say the person who's renting, who's the expat, did not do their due diligence, and then you have a problem, it's very difficult, if not almost impossible, to get your deposit back. That is just money you just kiss goodbye.
Yeah.
And also, as you stated, if you go to court, most of the times here, most lawyers will say, and what is a lawyer here is very different than what one would consider to be a lawyer in the US. That's another thing that needs to be understood.
Yes.
And the court system is different. And as you stated, it will normally go for the local, basically, because it could be their distant cousin.
Exactly.
It's very much family infused here.
Yes.
I know the larger the city, sometimes it makes difference, but Lakeside is very close.
Mhm.
People who have like, if anybody owns a business, then if you know this one person, like for example, my landlady, not my current landlady, but where I was before, for the when I was staying in the Airbnb that
Mhm.
became a long-term rental, what it was that her there were like her cousin and her, okay, she was from San Antonio, which is the next town over. Her
Right.
husband is from Chapala.
Mhm.
But between the two of them, they know almost everybody who owns a store in both cities,
Yeah, they
both
all.
little towns, right? You know, between cousins and aunts and uncles and nephews and nieces. And so between, it could be, and they can have all kinds of professions. They could be doctors, they could be construction workers. I'm like, oh, okay. You know, and what I can also say is that when you are close to a Mexican family,
Mhm.
then you get invited to their family events.
Oh, for sure.
That's how you tell. That's
Exactly.
how you tell.
That's
If
true.
you're not invited to the major family events, then you are nice, they like you,
Mhm.
but you're not just there yet. So
Right.
I'm not invited to all of the family events, but the major ones I'm invited to.
Right.
But it was also the wife, whose name is Mary, who just said, yeah, you know, I like you, you know, so there's that kind of thing. And
Right.
it's just interesting. It's sort of similar like with, right? Tell her, what's the Raita from Veracruz? What's her name?
Rakia.
Raikia was talking about, she mentioned something about how you work and how you can know where you are, your clothes. And I'm like, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's so true. You know, and the women pretty much run the family.
Oh, yeah.
The guys are there, right? And the woman, quite often, depending on the type of family they are, most of the time will be deferent to the male.
Right.
Woman says what happens in her home and who gets to be invited in and who's not and that kind of thing. So it's
Exactly.
very different than being in the US. So the rights of women can be very, very strong, but in a different way. And you just have to accept that. And the rights of expats, when you're just out and about in the
Mhm.
community, can be very, very different. And
Right.
yeah, I just need to learn my Spanish. My Spanish is so bad.
Mine isn't bad, but I could be more fluent. I mean, I've been here, I've studied it in Ecuador, and I was living in
Uh-huh.
Miami. And, I just feel like I've had a lot of opportunities. But as I
Yeah.
said, I feel that living in San Miguel is kind of a crutch in a
Okay.
bad way in regard to the language. But, I'm learning and we're taking lessons. I continually take lessons and I just keep adding to my vocabulary and I try and
Uh-huh.
people always say, you just don't worry about how you sound. And I said, I'm not worried about how I sound. I just say whatever and I figure it out. And most
Yes.
of the time, if you meet someone who does speak English, it's just what you said earlier. They start speaking to you in English and I'll just
Yeah.
keep talking to them in Spanish.
Spanish, that's right.
It's to me in English and we just do it, right? And I'm
Yeah.
constantly giving
Yeah.
that a try. So I think it helps because for me, I think what I want to get out of living in Mexico in the long run, because I don't have any plans to leave in the
Mm-hmm.
near future, is to really immerse more into the culture of the people here, because I feel that it's so rich and it's nice to get to know them. I've actually been in groups of, like you said, just hanging out with mostly Mexicans, and it's such a pleasure. It's so different. I remember
Yeah.
I did a girls' night with maybe 6 ladies that were all Mexicans,
Oh,
and
way
they
cool.
had
Yeah.
me cracking up. I was just like I thought I was going to feel a little bit like an outsider, but
Mhm.
I did not. And I had such a great time with them. Not everyone spoke English. There were two, I
Mhm.
think, of the 6 that spoke English. And I understood so much of the conversation, and they really went out of their way to make sure I was included. in everything that they were talking about. And
Yes.
we went to, I
Yes.
think, 3 different spots. This was over a year ago, pre-COVID. But I
Uh-huh.
remember just kind of going home thinking like, wow, I really had a great time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Oh
So yeah.
my God. Yeah, as far as people just sitting and talking, and that is just so much fun. And I find that, well, on a lot of Facebook groups, a lot of African Americans are like, well, how is the racism there?
I know.
Well, I'm gonna say for myself, when I go into Guadalajara, if I'm in some of the malls, kids will go, they're just like, who are you? Because, I don't have long hair. My hair is, it's all natural
Right.
and it's cut short. But I'll even have young kids here who've never, like if they're coming from the villages and they're coming into the little
Right.
towns here, they're just like,
Aw.
it's like, who?
They love it though.
Yeah, but they love it. They love it. Yet but I've never had anyone not refuse to serve me for anything. I don't have anyone following me around in the stores, which
Right.
has happened many times in LA, right? If I'm in Beverly Hills or a DO Drive or somewhere,
Yeah.
they don't know if I have the money or not, right?
Right.
And so that has happened. And then, but I haven't had that here. I
Yeah.
haven't had that here. Like, and you had asked me before, where have I traveled? I haven't done that much traveling since I've been here. I've
Right.
gone to Puerto Vallarta.
Mhm.
I've been in Barra de Navidad, of
Mhm.
course, Guadalajara. I've been to Mexico City.
Mhm.
But I have a altitude situation, so I can't go very high.
Okay.
5,000, maybe 6,000, about as high as I can go. Other
Okay.
than that, I got to pop in and pop out.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I can't breathe for
Okay.
whatever reason. And I was in Mexico City, which I absolutely loved, and did a tour there over Christmas. It was absolutely wonderful. But after 3 days, I just I couldn't walk anywhere. I
Right.
drove I rode with the tour because we got to see all the pyramids and
Mhm.
different places. It was a beautiful tour, but I couldn't do anything but just sit there like a lump on the log. But I
Yeah.
have been there. But I want to go to, I have people that I know in Hualtuco in the state of Oaxaca,
Okay.
and I want to go to Hualtuco. I would love to go to, well, Oaxaca and Veracruz,
Mhm.
because there are a number of African American, not African, Afro Mexican, yeah, people who were there. So I want to go check that out. I want to go to the Yucatan.
Mhm.
Um, I don't do heat well. So,
No, I know. We were in Zihuatanejo
uh-huh.
about 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Okay.
And it's funny because it's the closest beach to where we are now, central Mexico, San Miguel de Allende. And I knew it was the beach, but I don't know why. I just thought it wasn't going to be as hot as it actually was.
Mm,
And it was just super humid and sticky. I
yes.
was just like, ooh. But it was nice. It was nice to see
Uh-huh.
it. I enjoyed myself. We had a great time as a family. We were just there for, I think, 5 days or something like that. And we
Nice.
drove from San Miguel, and the weather here is amazing. I mean, it's
Really?
nice and
Friends keep
cool.
telling me that. They say, you should move here. You should move here. I'm like, I don't know.
Well, the altitude might not be for you because it is 6,300 feet
Ah,
above sea
okay.
level. So that could be a challenge. I've actually met people that told me they were living in Querétaro, but they had
Hmm.
the same issues with the breathing and some other things, and she couldn't move here. She said I loved it, but she ended up moving to Puerto Vallarta. This
Part
was
of I hmm
But yeah, so it was just very hot. What was very interesting about it was that there were a lot of Mexicans there as well. I mean, partially because it was just sunny and hot all the time. I'm sure a lot of people had tans, but they do have a lot of Afro Mexicanos, and you can see a very distinct difference in
Ah.
just the facial features.
Mhm.
Patricia Ann Talley, she lives
Oh,
there.
I love her. Yes. Did you
Yeah,
get to meet her?
we did. We hung out with her for 3 days in a
Oh
row.
my God. I haven't met her. Yes. Okay. Uh-huh.
She's worth visiting. She's so also a wealth of information,
Mm.
and very sweet. She adopted us. She's like, oh, I keep calling you my niece to my friends and da da da. She's so
Oh.
amazing, and we enjoyed ourselves and we learned a lot. But she told us that also there were a lot of Asians that landed there, years ago. And so
Oh.
you can see that in their features. There are a lot of like Mexicans, Afro Americans, and then there's like that Asian kind of look. And it was
Hmm.
interesting to see because we're not that far away. I mean, we're a 5 hour drive away. And
Yeah.
the weather, the scenery, the faces, they all changed when we got down to the beach. I said, okay, but it was
Right.
nice. It was worth checking out. So if you get a chance, I would say for sure get down there. But I have Nana coming up.
Oh, God, we didn't talk that long, girl. I gotta go. I got a nail appointment. So
Oh, do you? Okay. Awesome, Nannette.
yes.
I appreciate everything you shared, and I will
Okay.
work
And
on
if you need
getting
more information, because I got more to talk about, but okay.
that. No, maybe we can reconvene this on another.
Yeah.
It won't be out probably for at least a week or something. I got to work on it, and I have some other stuff. And I did one yesterday with my good friend Suzanne. She lives here, and
Uh-huh.
she's also retired, and she's super theatrical. So we did it at a restaurant, and that was a lot of fun. She had me
Okay.
check it out. So I'm going to work on that first. But yes, I love
And
learning about.
Nana and I know each other, just
Okay,
so you know. Nana and so we were together yesterday having lunch.
okay,
And
great.
Nana and I, oh my, okay, my thing is saying we need to be plugged in. Anyway, Nana, so I said Nana because I didn't know how this was going to work because they're building a house next door. And the houses here in the Mexican, they're like this.
Same. Yeah, they
Yeah,
touch.
but they're not making any noise. And I said, Nana, in case I can't talk to her, can I come? Because Nana lives in a whole different area, also quite Mexican.
Okay.
It is very quiet. She's there
Okay.
today.
Okay.
So. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
Peace
you
and
so
blessings.
much,
Have a
Nannette.
wonderful time.
You have a blessed day, and we'll be fabulous.
All right. All right. Peace and
Thank
blessings.
you.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Here.